mosques, when you go in, you take off your shoes, even today, you know, because the ground upon which you are standing is holy. I don't think it's so much in, if you went out to Polynesia, if you were in Tahiti, I don't think you necessarily find that. People take off their shoes. I think it's pretty Middle Eastern, actually, to take off your shoes because the ground on which you were standing is holy. I don't even think the Jews do it very much anymore, although they do say you can't wear a certain kind of shoes because of the composition of them. And so I know that on their fast day, what they call Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, that's coming up in not too distant future, the religious Jews wear special shoes. I forget what the requirements are, but they wear special shoes. I think they can't wear leather. They can't wear leather, that's what it comes down to. They can't wear animal substance. So it's just like taking off your shoes, wearing a slipper or something. It's just like, you know, so there too, it's a holy day, you take off your shoes. So this is pretty Middle Eastern, I think you would agree, yeah? So let's go back to, so this black stone, by the way, it's broken, that's why it's got ropes around it. I don't know if I mentioned this, broken. How did it get broken? Well, in the conflicts over time between different groups in Islam, like you have at the present time between Sunnis and Shiites and so on, and arguments about this. At one point, the stone was dragged away from the Kaaba by one sectarian group, and then they fought over it, and it was out in the desert someplace, and in the fighting it got broken, and it was dragged back by another group. And so then it was tied up with ropes to put it back together again, and I think that's how it is at the present time. Again, I haven't been there, but I think that's an accurate picture of the situation. And that would have been broken in struggles between different groups, probably I think around 1100s or so, you know, maybe 900, 1000, somewhere in this period in the Arabian Peninsula, when not between pagans and non-pagans, between different Islamic groups that were in opposition to each other and in contention with each other and for control of the Kaaba and the stone and so on and so forth. It got broken in these fights. So it is broken even at the moment. But again, you can say Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Quran. But you can't really say Abraham and Isaac or Ishmael or whoever you think is involved in this process put the stone down there. And you know, and what does the stone symbolize? I don't think there probably are stories to tell you what it symbolizes, but to my mind, it goes back to pre-Islamic religious practice. And Mecca was a pre-Islamic religious shrine. Certainly it wasn't the only one. It was one of the pre-Islamic religious shrines in the Arabian Peninsula. Now, I drew a map for you earlier of the Arabian Peninsula. Not a very good map, but it'll do. And you see, what was that, the original name for that? Guess what? So I can pronounce that easy in English because I see it's Jazir Arab, and I know by the accent it's a long I, Jazir Arab, which means what in Arabic? The island of the Arabs. The island of the Arabs. It's a way in Arabic or other languages related to it of expressing what we would call in English what? Peninsula. For them, you know, and I think that's right. A peninsula looks more or less like an island. In fact, if you haven't got a good explorer, it could even be considered to be an island. So, you know, it's a word for peninsula. But the island of the Arabs, where the Arabs came out of, the Jaziratul Arab, the island of the Arabs. And that's what we would call the Arabian Peninsula. At the moment, we're talking about the Arabian Peninsula because this is where it all began for the Islamic religion anyway. There's no point talking about Afghanistan. There's no point talking about Jakarta, Indonesia. There's no point talking about Nigeria. I mean, those are all interesting places, and I think their culture is worthy of study. But in Islam, Islam begins on the Jaziratul Arab. And that's why we're focusing on it. You've got to focus someplace. I can be talking about Turkish development of Islam, and then I would talk about the Turks in Central Asia, and what they were before the Muslims came, and what kind of Muslim teachers went out there, and so on. But, you know, that's not what all Muslims know. What we can do in this class is tell you what all Muslims know and recognize as their prehistory. You can't go into the history of every given cultural group, whether on the Indian subcontinent or the African continent, or North Africa. You follow me? Egypt. We could do Egypt, but that's a huge course all in itself. So this is Islam, and why focus on the Arabs? Because Muhammad, as I told you, was an Arab and came out of the Arabian Peninsula, and that's where Islam came. So we look upon the Arab Peninsula to some greater extent than we would ordinarily. So, okay, the religion then of the pre-Islamic Arabs. They had some different gods and goddesses that are mentioned in these stories. I think you can see them in Nicholson, Al-Manat, Al-Uzza. One may have been a moon god or goddess. I'm not sure what the shrine originally in Mecca was. I think he talks about it in some of these portions that I hope you're reading here.